aware of those groups that exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just was curious.
Yeah, so I actually met her, well not, I met this person, I met her through Facebook.
Sydney,
Okay, thanks again for speaking. So I'll let Dan go ahead.
well, they get to do their little.
Oh yeah. Do you want to start after they do the icebreaker?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I'll go first. Okay. My name is Sydney Yin. I lived in San Diego for 4 years. Dan is my realtor who helped me buy my house 2 years ago in Mission Valley, so I'm grateful for that. My favorite thing about the summer, I grew up in Canada, Edmonton, Alberta, where snow happened in August. Need I say more? Yeah. Annette Ritchie's my co-worker here, so I'll let her talk.
Hi, my name's Annette, and thank you, Dan, for the invitation to be here. I actually live here in OB, and so when Cindy said he was coming to this, I think I invited myself to come along. So this is such a treat. I've been here for about 1.5 years, and from Colorado, and where you guys say, oh, all the snow in August, I actually love snow in August, but I think OB is a great second to the mountains. I love it, and in the summertime, I love everyone, all my friends from Colorado come out constantly, so. Yeah, I love summer for that. Yeah.
Great. Well, what I want to say is, you know, in life we do a lot of things and meet a lot of people, and one of the greatest experiences in life is really making new connections and learning new things and stuff like that. And it's been a real joy to know Sydney, to see a kid like this that, you know, was in Canada, and then he studied music, playing the piano, and then he winds up at Juilliard, gets his doctorate. And then he's at another really great college, and he's involved in the teaching and stuff like that. And I've got to know Sydney a little bit, and he kind of told me at one point he had to decide, was he going to be a performing artist, which means you got to practice, what, 15 hours a day?
Probably 8 to 10, something like that.
Or to go into teaching or something like that. And so the Youth Symphony, it's really been wonderful to see that. First of all, it is absolutely magic. It's incredible to see the quality of the music that these kids can produce. I mean, clearly I would say that the Youth Symphony, they match up with a lot of civic orchestras that I've been in other places I've lived. But the second thing, and probably even more important, is the Opus program. To see, when I grew up in Chula Vista, we had music then Prop 13 took everything away. But now what they're doing, they're helping kids in the public schools to learn music and kind of bring them through that, and that is just so wonderful. And the fact that they took a bunch of kids to China last year, and I mean, it's just incredible what they've done. And a lot of it is, I think, because of the leadership and things that they're doing. And anyway, it's been a real pleasure to know Sydney, and I'm just so happy you could be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
So I'll talk a little bit more about the Youth Symphony, but before I get started, we have an alum on the table, and her name is Anastasia. She plays the clarinet. I asked if it was okay for me to interview her for a little bit, because that's a great connection to have right from the start. So Anastasia, can you tell us again when you were in the Youth Symphony?
Yes, I played with the Youth Symphony for 2 years, 2011 and 2012.
And what years, was it a high school?
It was high school,
It was,
yeah.
okay, so what I'm interested in, I just met you 20 minutes ago, is how you got to know the Youth Symphony, why you decided to audition, and what made you join, and what did you get out of it?
So I went to 2 very arts and music oriented high schools, Canyon Crest Academy and Coronado School of the Arts as well. So I knew about SDYS through people I knew through school. I decided to audition. At the time I was planning on pursuing a career in performance. So partially for that reason, also because of the idea of being surrounded by other people who were so interested in not only music but classical performance was very attractive to me, because that can be hard to hard to find sometimes, especially in high school. And as far as my experience in SDYS goes, I still think about it so often. It was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had, I think. It's I think the perfect balance between, oh, I'm sorry. The perfect balance between being inclusive and open to anyone, any young musician who wants to do something like that, and being competitive and challenging. There are different tiers, there are different orchestras, and it's audition based. So you have the pressure, sort of the positive pressure of wanting to, place where you want to be, but also knowing that you'll be able to do it if you want to.
Well, thank you, Anastasia. So I just want to take a brief moment to tell you about the Youth Symphony and what we do. It's a nonprofit. We started in 1945 in Balboa Park. We converted the building called Casa del Prado after the Second World War ended, which Casa del Prado, correct me if I'm wrong, Casa del Prado was a nurse's station, and the city of Balboa Park turned that building into a youth arts building. So 3 of the main youth arts organizations were formed: the Youth Symphony, the Civic Youth Ballet, and the Junior Theater. All development of the arts in kids were founded by the city of San Diego with their Park and Rec department. Later on, all 3 organizations have spun off into their own nonprofit, and so we have this is our 70th year. We celebrated that this year. We took, as Dan said, about 120 of our most advanced students to China, and 3 cities and 4 performances. We played in the biggest concert halls in Beijing, Shanghai, and Yantai, our sister city. So throughout the 70 years, we've been training musicians like Anastasia, who had their private lessons or had training in their school, but wanted more during the weekend. So our rehearsals go from 8:30 in the morning on Saturday through 7:30 at night, and then Sunday again from 12 to 5. The reason we go that long is because we have over 700 students in our program currently. But what happened, and I'll let Annette talk about the Opus program more later, but we took a look at ourselves as far as the customers we were serving. About 10 years ago, the board of directors and the leadership team looked at our demographics and realized that, wait a second, we are only serving primarily Caucasians and Asians in the North County, which means underserved communities and people who do not have access to musical instruments and music lessons weren't being served by us. We're one of the largest youth symphonies in the country, the 6th oldest, that's still continuously operational. So we did a major revamp of our vision and mission, and out came the Community Opus Project, which Annette Fritchie, here, my colleague, the community program manager, leads. And I'm going to pass the torch to her to talk about a little bit what we do there. Okay?
Absolutely. So Cindy explained, that we have about 700 kids who rehearse on the weekends in the traditional sense of a youth symphony. In 2008, the Youth Symphony changed the vision of what we were doing to still provide excellent music education for those students that are looking for that. But our mission now is to make music education accessible and affordable for all. We realized that we were doing a great job of being accessible to students who had access to private lessons, but not to those who didn't. And also looked at the demographics here in California as far as the school goes. And schools had cut the arts, as you guys have mentioned, and know about considerably, starting in the 80s and then it continued in the 90s and the 2000s. I grew up in Colorado and went to school in the Midwest, where it's very common, or you just take for granted, that you have music education from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. General music in elementary school, and then opportunities for choir, band, orchestra in middle school and high school. If you guys are from California, you realize that's not the case. And so we decided with the Youth Symphony that the most effective way that we could use our reputation and our influence is to influence the public schools. And if we could get music teachers back into the schools, then that makes music education accessible for a lot of those underserved populations that we weren't seeing in our programs. So So in 2010, the Youth Symphony started community programs. So we have two big pillars of the Youth Symphony. We have our conservatory programs, which are the weekend programs that Sydney oversees, and then the community programs, which I oversee. And in 2010, we started the Community Opus Project, which was in partnership with the Youth Symphony and the Chula Vista Elementary School District. Chula Vista Elementary School District obviously is in Chula Vista. There are 46 elementary schools, about 29,000 kids from kindergarten through 6th grade. They hadn't had an arts teacher, visual arts, performing arts, music, in over 15 years. If you look at their test scores, they're really good at math and English language. But you guys all know what happens to students when all they get is math and English language. And so we had some connections at their district office and some partnerships already down in that area. And so that's where we started. And the Youth Symphony went down and we funded 2 after-school programs at 2 Title I schools, so schools that have a lot of poverty and foster youth and second language learners. And it was an after-school program for 65 kids between those 2 schools. They met for 2 days a week. It was all open for 3rd graders, and they learned violin, viola, cello, and double bass. We said as Youth Symphony we'd go down and fund this for a year, and school district, if you see some good results, we'll continue our conversation. So we knew the power of music education and that they would see great results. So it was all after school, and what they were seeing were the results transferring during the school day. They were seeing that the kids, their attendance was perfect on the days that there was music after school. Something you guys all know if you have kids probably, they might be sick and throwing up, but if there's something great going on at school, they show up. So attendance rates went up, their focus in school was better. We had some frequent flyers to the principal's office that were in our after-school program. We didn't say no to anybody who signed up. And so there were some kids who had behavior issues that were in the program. By like November, December, they were no longer going to the principal's office. Their focus was on something that empowered them, that gave them purpose and meaning. And a lot of times kids who are disruptive in school are bored. They're not being challenged, exactly, and so they were getting that through music because it uses different parts of your brain, different parts of your attention.
I'm gonna interject one thing here. Our leader, DeLuke Smith, is our president and CEO, and he firmly believes in the fact that not all students are into sports. Not all students are into debate. Not all students are into science clubs. And so providing a way, and I'm sure Annette will talk about El Sistema, this word, a little bit, but because so many students who don't have belonging to go to, they now have something to look forward to, something that they can develop those skills and perform at the end at a recital or a band concert, at a string orchestra concert.
Yeah. It's hard to hear down here on basketball.
And they finally have something to look forward to, and that's also why their behavior and attitude and learning change during their school day. Sorry, I interjected.
Yeah. And one of the main things actually that the school district saw is all of our rehearsals, we have them open to parents. And so our parents would just be sitting in the back. Most of the parents that first year are first language Spanish families. A lot of times those families don't feel comfortable going into the schools and interacting with the classroom teachers, interacting with the principals. They were able to come in after school. The rehearsals are run at the schools. And so they were able to come in a familiar place, feel very comfortable, and that was transferring during the school day as well. So they would come in after school, they'd come to concerts, and then they felt comfortable to go and talk to Mrs. Flores, the 3rd grade teacher, and go in and talk to the principal if they had a concern, to talk to the school secretary. And so that's honestly what the school district really saw and kept bringing back to us. We thought they want to see data, they want to see test results. They did like those things, but they really liked the parent engagement that was occurring. So after 1 year of just being in those 2 schools, the school district came back and they said, this is great, we want to expand it to 6 elementary schools and we'll pay for it. So the school district allowed the Youth Symphony to go in and expand our community program to 6 elementary schools. We chose all Title I schools again and opened it to 3rd and 4th graders that year. They saw similar results. The school district came back to us and said, wonderful, we want you guys to provide music education for all 29,000 kids. And we said, no. We're the San Diego Youth Symphony. We're still we believe in our conservatory programs. We can't reach 29,000 kids as a youth symphony, but you school district, you reach 29,000 kids every day in math and science and reading and English. And so we want to help you though to do that for music as well. And so that next year we started an in-school pilot program. Remember, this is a school district that hadn't had a music teacher, arts teacher for 15 years. They didn't know what it was like to have, for a teacher to walk their kids down to that elective class during the day. They didn't know how to create a master calendar that reflected the arts. So we did a pilot program with just the third grades at 18 different schools where we sent our teaching artists into the school and taught music twice a week to those 18 third grades. And so the principals could see what it was like, the teachers could see what it was like. They had assemblies where there were student performers. And it was wonderful. 2 years ago, the school district then was ready to hire full-time credentialed music teachers. So music teachers, art teachers, dance teachers were all credentialed through the state of California, just like regular classroom teachers are too. And that's, some schools do have their arts programs provided by just teaching artists who aren't credentialed. There's some really neat things through that. The Youth Symphony, we really firmly believe in credentialed arts teachers. There's so much that goes into that with the credentialing, and that's what we want to support. We don't want to, there's another, like the after school programs is where we have those professional teaching artists, but we really want to support the credentialed music teachers. So 2 years ago, Chula Vista Elementary School District hired 7 full-time music teachers. So 7 full-time music teachers from nothing before. They made a visual and performing arts plan that was approved by the school board, that they would make sure there was a music teacher in all of the schools within 10 years. This is all from the After School Community Opus Project, being that visual example to the schools, being a visual example to the superintendents, director of curriculums to see what was going on. Back inside. So we had the 7 full-time teachers last year. We are still, the Youth Symphony is still running the after-school program. When they hired full-time music teachers, we decided we needed to revamp what we were doing after school, as opposed to being at the 6 elementary schools where just kids from those 6 schools could be in the after-school strings and band program. We changed it to being at 2 schools, a string school and a band school, but we opened the doors for anyone in the 46 elementary schools to come to. We knew that it would limit a little bit because it would be parents who could drive their kids to those schools, but we again chose to be a Title I school, so a lot of those kids would be the ones coming after school. What we saw last year is that we had kids from 29 of the elementary schools coming to our program, and then they were going back to their elementary schools, and they were able to play for their PTOs, they were able to play for their principals, play for their classrooms, and help spur the power of music education, how it was transforming them. It was really successful, and then in June 2015, at a school board meeting, we didn't know this was going to happen. The school board allotted $5 million for 3 years, so $15 million strictly to hire back arts educators. It's huge. So as of September, or August, when they opened the doors for this school year, 15-16, every single school in the Chula Vista Elementary School District has a visual performing arts teacher. All 29,000 kids are either receiving music, visual arts, media arts, dance, or theater. Some of the bigger schools have all of those teachers at them. And so it's just been really fun to be a part of a nonprofit organization that is not just providing a really great after-school program, but we're there to make a systematic change into the community, and so that they can stand on their own, and the school can be proud that they're offering and really changing lives and educating the whole child there. So we are still doing our work down there in Chula Vista. We also have some partnerships with San Diego Unified in the City Heights neighborhood, helping to support those music teachers that are there. And then some work up in Solana Beach as well, with an after-school tutoring organization that we're helping to bring music there. Additionally, the work that we've been doing down in Chula Vista has gotten a lot of national attention of other schools saying, oh my goodness, how can we do this as well? And so we've been networking and helping to coach and consult other nonprofits of how they can make a systematic change as well with their school districts in addition. So that's kind of our work with the Youth Symphony. What we've also seen too has been fun is that our kids in the after school program in the Opus Project, they are now auditioning into our conservatory programs. So we have about 60 or 70 kids of those 700 are from Chula Vista, and so that's just changed the dynamics and the demographics of our population in conservatory, which has just made it really rich and full and really to reflect what we have here in San Diego. So we're not stopping, we're continuing, and just, yeah, we want to definitely the schools as well.
So this is the first.
It's like Starlight Opera, right?
Yeah, Starlight Opera. Yeah. This is the first year also that our Opus students have been 8 or 9 students have been invited to a summer festival in Aspen. Called Take a Stand. It's in partnership with LA Phil and Aspen Festival. And then also, we have a student who also has been selected as an alternate cello at the Carnegie Hall New Youth Orchestra this summer. And so that's all from no music education to being able to achieve something like that. So we're very proud of these students who are as a result of the work that we've been doing.
Okay, so we base our work, the Community Opus Project is based on the work of El Sistema, which is using music education as a vehicle for social change. It started in Venezuela, I think about 50 years ago. If you guys know Dudamel, the conductor of the LA Phil, he's a product of El Sistema, so he's gotten a lot of press and whatnot. And so it's just using the transformative power of music to really make a social change. And so that's what we are trying to mimic our programs offer as well. Yeah.
Cece, you had a question? I think we're done with our presentation, so I won't go for questions.
Thank you for
so
letting me
thank
share.
you.
The local cluster elementary schools around here. I know that there's very nice, like, I believe that Bush Beach Elementary in particular is still a Title I school. And we've ran such a strong PTA that we've provided our own programs, but, you know, I'm sure they wouldn't mind help.
So we would love to have a conversation. When we have become very well connected with the Visual and Performing Arts Department of San Diego Unified School District, they're in the midst of writing their strategic plan, just like Chula Vista did. And so our president, Luke Smith, is sitting on that writing of the strategic plan to help. Yes, that too. So yeah.
How do you get your funding?
A lot of it from Chula Vista is coming from the school district, which is great. We also have grants that come from the National Endowment for the Arts, from VH1 Say the Music Foundation, Carnegie Hall, we're applying for a big grant from them soon, local funders.
No, those are the big ones. But just so that you know how the finance works in our nonprofit, it's on the 990 that you can look at our website anyway. But our budget is about 1.8 million a year, and only about 30% of that is earned income, which means ticket sales from our concerts that we perform in Copley Symphony Hall, and tuition that we charge our conservatory students. And we keep that very, very low in comparison to other youth orchestras in the country. So our typical tuition for conservatory students is about $500 a year, but that gives you 33 rehearsals and 3 big concerts. Otherwise, the 70% is a contributed income based on grant writing that we've done and donations and individual donations and things like that. Yeah.
Anybody work with the American Federation of Musicians?
We don't work with them. The Musicians Union you're talking about. Yeah. So we don't work with them per se, but we do have contacts from that organization. In fact, a lot of phone calls that I get is something like, okay, I have a wedding next year, can we hire some of the student musicians?
Yeah.
We actually say no to that, not because we don't want to give opportunity to our students, but it takes away from professional musicians that are in the Musicians Union. We direct them to call the union. That's how we kind of build a relationship with them as well. Yes?
Two-part. First of all, are you a signer?
Am I a signer? No.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a
you just
teacher. I
totally
was in the
look like
classroom
you
before.
do
There's
sign.
some
Okay.
sign.
I had to ask that. You just do so many of the same motions anyways. I just want to say that for many years I was a professional musician. I made my living at it. And I started off in youth orchestras. Probably in junior high school was the first time opportunity playing in the learning classical music. I'm a percussionist, so it taught me how to read music. Then in high school I went to jazz bands, all kinds of stuff. Unfortunately, the only way I could really the only way I could make money was to play rock and roll music, because nobody was hiring a classical percussionist for anything. But I was so disappointed. My son is now 38 years old. I was so disappointed in the San Fernando Valley when he went to high school. There was no more music programs. It was so disheartening to me that, I mean, obviously he got it at home, and he played drums and everything, and his father was a bass player, so he got it at home, but he didn't have that opportunity. Now I've got grandchildren in Encinitas, 1 year old and 3 years old. I'm wondering, are these kind of programs going to spread so that maybe my grandchildren will be able to play in some kind of programs like this?
We are actually specifically working in North County. Not yet with Encinitas, but working with Solana Beach right now, and a lot of those, they're elementary school districts as well that are connected to the bigger secondary school district. And so stay tuned, especially if they're 1 and 3.
Yeah, they got ways to go.
There's hope in the next like 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and then I'm going to ask you a question. How do, for example, if you all live in Ocean Beach, right? I'm guessing. That they have friends or neighbors who live in a neighborhood where school music does not exist. What should they do? Should they write a letter to the principal, the school district?
So just to touch on that, my team works with thousands of teachers. So San Diego Unified, Chula Vista, we've been working with them for about, I don't know, like 30 years or so. Maybe I think North County too, but I contact and talk to a lot of the principals and meet with them one-on-one. And I used to be a music student too as I was growing up, and I grew up on the East Coast. So if there's anything I can do in our team to do for you guys.
Just as a parent side of things, I mean, if there is a pretty well-established PTA, plan to go to a PTA meeting, introduce yourself, how much you want, because they're always looking for people to help. I mean, it's a constant.
One of the things that we've learned with our work as an outside source trying to help a school district, the #1 way to make a change in a school is through parents. The school board can put things down, and it might take a year or two to filter through. If a parent is complaining or knocking at the door, it happens overnight. And so, like, you guys, you know this, it absolutely does. And so, if you guys want to see a change, if you want to bring the arts back to a school, the best way to do that is to rally parents and be that squeaky wheel. Principals will find a way to, make it happen.
Because they don't want you in their office every day.
Absolutely. And when it's a positive thing, like what's really fun is the superintendent, Dr. Escobedo, down in Chula Vista, when he talks about the transformation of bringing the arts back, he always talks about it being a win-win. There's nothing negative that has come from bringing the arts back. Parents are happier, kids are learning more, they're learning deeper. It's just been, it's so symbiotic. There's nothing negative that comes from it.
I think you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is more, I guess, of a curiosity question. Maybe I need to call my son's school. So my son's in kindergarten, and I don't live in OB. I live in Mission Hills, and so he goes to school there. And I know that they do have a music program there. Does that mean that the principal just decided to put money towards it and create it?
Is it part of San Diego Unified?
Yes.
It really depends there. I know in the elementary schools of San Diego Unified, the principals typically have a choice to either do music, PE, library, or like science specialty. And so if not knowing the situation or the school, I would say that they chose to do music there, but I'm not sure. There's some schools also where the PTAs or PTOs fund it as well. So the principal might choose library, but then the PTO funds for the music teacher to come in too.
Okay.
So it all.
I'm just curious to how it works, because he's only in kindergarten, so I'm new to all of this.
Call and find out, yeah, and then be in touch if you guys want support for the exception. Yeah.
I mean,
That's great.
I do know.
I'm a personal friend.
Oh, thanks, right?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, we do. In the conservatory programs, we have about 9 students from OB zip codes.
My friends from Honduras. That's how far they travel. They travel from school.
It's 12:55. We have time for a couple more quick questions. I have one. Do you guys work with charter schools?
Funny that you ask. Yes, I'm leaving this meeting to go down to Gompers Prep Academy, which is in Southeast San Diego, a charter school, and we are starting to work with charter schools like this season because a lot of times they don't have arts programs and they want to know how can we get an arts program. So we're working with them, Diego Hills Charter School as well, which is alternative high school, and Otay Ranch Academy for the Arts are the 3 on our radar right now.
And then if people want to get a hold of you, did everyone get one of these brochures that wanted one?
And I have
Mr.
business cards.
Plaza, okay, and then the website's on here, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And then-
SDYS, San Diego Youth Symphony.org. My name again is Annette Fritchie and Cindy Yen.
I have a quick, do you have one more question?
So, you work at all with SCPA, which is a performing arts center.
We don't really work directly with them. We're at different events with them and know some of their staff, but we don't have
The
much.
important thing is to interact with them.
Absolutely, they're doing great stuff.
And the other thing is, do you work with any of the pipe bands? Because they all do a certain amount of teaching, so. That kind
No, not to my knowledge. That sounds lovely.
Yeah, I'm solo, that's your
All
done.
right, great.
So to end the meeting, I have a trivial question, and the prize is a Youth Symphony published CD that has Shostakovich Symphony No. 10 and a violin concerto. When were we founded?
1945.
1949.
I really encourage anyone to go to the concerts, and the ticket prices are very reasonable.
Yeah, let
Some
me
of them
know.
are free.
Yeah, contact me and tell me that you met me at the OB Network Group. I probably can get you comp tickets as well. But yeah, so, we perform at the Copley Symphony Hall. June 11th is the younger ensembles, and June 12th is the most advanced ensembles. Dan has been to several of these, and if you close your eyes, these kids play like professional symphony.
And it's what Anastasia was saying. She was saying that.
Yes, she was in that group too.
She's a player.
And sometimes when they play, they have a very special pianist.
I won't be
He is really good. He's very bashful, but he's incredible.
bashful. Yeah.
About-
Thank you again for the
Very
opportunity.
great.
Great.